All right, we're back on SportsBit. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Big game breakdown, Monday Night Football. The Ravens and the Patriots. Huge game in the AFC. We'll also sneak in a college basketball game on Fox Sports 1. And we'll do deep dive. We'll recap Army, Navy, and line moves for bowl season. Bowl season starts Saturday. Part 2 coming up Wednesday on the deep dive. Huge show coming up on a Monday. We always recap the NFL, Teddy, and we start with bad beats. The Jets, it was over. That was 14-0 Niners before you could crack your first beer.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets were dead. They were dead at halftime. They were dead in the third quarter. You know, all the guys in the Tuesday group who were telling me what a good bet that the San Fran were, they were all counting their money until they weren't. The Jets rise from the dead. And, you know, it just shows, even in the best of spots, even in the best of situations, number one, dead teams can rise. Number two, you can't lay points with the very worst teams in the NFL. Very tough beat if you had San Fran, but you can't lay points with the Niners. And, of course, what was the key to the comeback? The kicker, Phil Dawson. He had only missed one kick all year. I mean, that includes extra points. He missed 2 from inside the 50. And, of course, the Jets nailed their 2-point conversion try. That's the most important point spread play in all of football, Pauly.
Yes, yeah. How about this horrific beat? I was on this. Green Bay, Seattle under 46.5. I actually had 46 in my pocket. It's a blowout. It's 31-3 with 10 minutes left. Rodgers is out of the game. Carroll still has the starters in. Wilson takes him down the field. And then another Wilson interception. 5 interceptions. Most of them weren't his fault. The receivers dropped it. 6 Seattle turnovers, and Janis runs it in. Carroll had an onside kick, too. He refused to wave the white flag. 2 touchdowns late sends the game over. Green Bay, our play of the day. Excellent call by you, Teddy, on Friday. Green Bay in a rout.
Yeah, Green Bay with the rout. Tough beat. A really tough beat if you had the under in that ball game over cashes. But don't sleep on the Packers right now. I've got Green Bay, as of today, top 5 team in my NFL power ratings.
Oh, very good. Bad bets, plenty of these, Teddy. How about the Colts? They get swept by the Texans. They were 6.5, and luck was horrible in this one.
Well, I don't blame luck. I really don't. I mean, there was a ton of Colts money. They were bet up to minus 6.5. It was Houston wire to wire. That Monday Night Football blowout, well, it looks like it was all the Jets stinking. I mean, what'd they have? 9 penalties for the Colts, 3 turnovers. Luck got him to the Houston 42 on the last drive. He's taking all this heat because he tried to throw a screen pass and he had multiple options. Of course, that didn't matter in our world, Paulie, because Colts weren't going to cover anyway, even if they won.
Now, he had some horrible throws in that game.
Well, he's not getting no protection, and his receivers aren't running routes particularly well. Let's put it that way.
Well, it doesn't affect the decision making. You can't turn the ball over. What was this now? This was a hot topic at your Tuesday group meeting. Wise guys money again on the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it in the closing lines. You know, when Bovada and Sports Interaction are minus 6 and Penny and Chris are minus 4, you know where the sharp square divide is. And the wise guys all over Cleveland again, Paulie, again. And the RG3 experiment did not go well. He was 12 of 28 for 104 yards. That doesn't really tell the story. 3 sacks, 1 interception. The interception came on a flea flicker from his own end zone into triple coverage. That doesn't even tell the whole story. The longest pass play was 21 yards. That was on a dump off to the running back. That doesn't tell the whole story. This, in my mind, is the best stat. Griffin finished the first half trailing 20-0 with a quarterback rating of 0.0. That was the Cleveland offense since he ran him out of the gym.
Could be the worst team in NFL history. Let me explain. You're off your bye week. You're at home. You don't want to go 0-16, obviously. People are running their mouths saying, maybe Alabama could give you a game. You change the quarterback. You still come out flat and down 20-0. That's horrible. You're a no-show at home.
Yeah, the 0-16 Lions came out of their bye and they lost by like 5 or 6 touchdowns. So, you know, I don't think this Browns team's worse than that Lions team. I don't.
That's a high school defense. There's not a lot of talent on this team.
And for anyone out there that says, Alabama's going to give the Browns a game, that's ridiculous. They will not. Cleveland would be a 3-touchdown favorite over Alabama, and assuming they were motivated, they would win and cover.
Yes, no doubt there. But you got to put up with that all week, and still you come out with the no-show. I didn't understand this. Another bad bet. Arizona went off the favorite in Miami.
Yeah, the Cards bet. I mean, ton of Arizona money from +1 all the way to -2. And, the Dolphins blew the late lead. Tannehill got hurt. Zona still found a way to lose. Matt Moore didn't do a damn thing, I think 3 and out on each of his first 3 possessions after Tannehill got hurt until he got the pass interference call. His Stills made that catch in the final drive of the game. Gave him 1st and goal at the 1, though the early reports, Tannehill torn ACL, could be out for the year. Let's put it this way, all right? They were betting Arizona. The Dolphins had 3 turnovers, 14 penalties, and their backup quarterback was inept. And they won and covered, which tells you what Arizona did. Of course, a lot of it was the kicker. I mean, Castanzeros had a rough season. He had a rough day on Sunday. A missed extra point, a missed field goal, then a second extra point blocked and returned for 2. That's 7 points worth of difference in a 3-point game.
Squares beat the Sharps on this one. The Falcons against the Rams, no Julio, no problem. A rout by Atlanta on the road.
Yeah, and of course, the books that cater to wise guys cleaned up because the sharp money bet LA hard, hand over fist after Jones was announced out. The books that cater to the public, they didn't do so well on this particular ballgame. The Rams, let's see, last in the NFL in first downs, last in the NFL in yards, last in the NFL in points per game. Oh, and they committed 5 turnovers in this one. And Jeff Fisher, yes, he ties the all-time record, Pauly, most losses ever by any head coach ever, tying Dan Reeves. Once again, the ultimate example of white privilege.
Yes, very good. Bad for the books now. Wise guys all over the Titans. They were bet up to 2 against Denver. They hang on late. Gary Kubiak, you'd like to have that game back Sunday night. You should have played for the tie. You might miss the playoffs now.
Yeah, but we can't forget the one more bad the bad bets, and that was all the money that came in on New Orleans. Of course, with Drew Brees. I mean, look at Drew Brees the last 2 weeks. 0 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and no timing on that Saints passing game all day. You wonder if the Will Smith killer trial is affecting
No
their
doubt.
work ethic.
No, excellent point. Excellent point by you.
The defense, they shut down Tampa. How often is the Saints defense the dominant unit on the field? And they still found a way to lose that one. So that was certainly a bad bet. But wise guys all over the Tennessee. How about this? How many times do you see the favorite win and cover when they don't score a point after halftime? Not many. How many times see the favorite win and cover when the starting quarterback goes 6 for 20 and nets 75 yards on 22 dropbacks? Not very often. But Denver, they have 9 rush attempts, 55 times Trevor Siemian dropped back to pass. That's not the ratio Gary Kubiak is looking for. Way to call plays for your first-year starter at QB who was hurt all week and barely practiced, Kubiak. Well done. Bad result for the house there.
Yep, and bad for the books. So the Bears, plenty of Bears money the whole week. They knew the Lions couldn't be laying those points at home, and they're lucky they got the win. The Lions are almost swept by the Bears this season.
Yeah, a ton of Chicago money from +9.5 down to +7.5, even 7s in some location. Look at the tweets. We've got one from Adam Schefter. Quote, Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford is going to have to play the rest of the season with a glove covering his dislocated thumb and torn ligaments. That's not good. Stafford, of course, with 4 interceptions in 2 games versus the Bears and 3 interceptions for the rest of the season against everybody else. The other tweet worth noting, Matthew Stafford's 8 game-winning drives in the fourth quarter or overtime this season, the most in a single season since the AFL-NFL merger back in 1970. And for all the Stafford quotes, how about this, Pauly? Lions have now allowed 20 or fewer points in 7 straight games in one season for the first time since 1961.
Dynamite info there. Nobody bets the Jags. Nobody wanted the Jags this week. Another rough result as the Vikings get in an ugly game. About the first half staying under, and they scored 6 times. It was all field goals, though. And the Vikings win by 9 with the late touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't a good result for the house at all. Very ugly football game. It wasn't the only one. There was a lot of ugly football played on Sunday, but there wasn't any Jags money. We've been used to seeing the wise guy support for Jacksonville. They finally laid off. Smart move.
Yeah. How about this? How about the Steeler game? In the snow. Finally, we got a rough game with snow, and this was crazy with the halftime delay. A epic performance on a Bell.
Yeah, I mean, it was two-way action on the Steelers-Bills. The Squares beat the Sharps in that one, which is always fun to talk about. But this stat absolutely stands out, something that I'm sure our viewers will be interested in, despite the fact that it's not betting related. Let's put it this way. Most scrimmage yards in a player's first 10 games of the season. You have 1963, Jim Brown. You have 1975, O.J. Simpson. Those are legendary seasons. In between them, Le'Veon Bell this year. How good was Bell? He outgained the Bills by himself, 278 to 275. But let's not forget about the game that cost me years off my life, Pauly. That Eagles-Redskins. I feel 10 years older today than I did yesterday, having sweated out that contest.
Big win for the Redskins, and Wentz with another key turnover late. And watch Rex Ryan, see if he survives. There were reports before the game Sunday that if he lost, he was out. And he also said he doesn't know if Taylor's going to start next week. Could be over for Rex, and it's certainly over for the Bills. Up next, big game breakdown. Monday Night Football, huge matchup. Ravens hit the road to take on the Patriots in Seton Hall in South Carolina. We'll get to college in the deep dive on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, Pauly and Teddy, Betting Insight today. As always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Big game breakdown. Great game, Monday Night Football. Ravens and the Patriots down to 6.5, 44.5 the total. The weather's going to cooperate. It looked like rain and cold, but it's going to pass for the game. But so far, nothing but Baltimore money. This open as high as 9.5. Is that key teaser protection shop, 5 dimes, plus 8 at most shops, but blew through 7. In order for that to happen, Teddy, we're talking about a ton of money here.
Well, yeah, and of course, especially on a Monday Night Football game where you know plenty of recreational bettors aren't going to do anything except for play on Tom Brady and the Patriots. So to see this line move, and it was, widely available at 8. There were a handful of books that were higher than 8, including the 9.5, as you mentioned, at 5 dimes. So to blow through the 7 the way that it did, and it's been two separate moves. One to the 7, a second one through the 7. We know that the wise guys are the only people that are betting this game during the week really like the Baltimore side.
No intimidation factor here at all. Remember, they've won twice in Foxborough during the playoffs. They roughed up Brady the one year, I think 2010, I believe, in a blowout. And they also won the year they won the Super Bowl when they beat the 49ers. And remember, the close loss was the Lee Evans game when he dropped the game-winning touchdown, and Cundiff came out and missed a chippy, and the Patriots won that one. So they are right there with these guys.
Sure. 3-3 straight up the last 6 meetings. They've won twice in the postseason, and they covered twice in playoff losses here. And, of course, we're starting to see signs. Certainly last week against Miami, Flacco and the offense started to get it. 8 different players had multiple catches in the win over Miami last week. And maybe they don't have a ton of great playmakers, but the role players for Baltimore understand their roles. And when the ball gets to the right spot, Flacco, he's been at his best in the no huddle. And that's why I don't like the under in this ballgame, because Baltimore's been able to move the football more effectively when they've been pushing the pace than when they've been a little bit slower pace. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see the Ravens run a fair bit of no huddle in this ballgame, which I think give Flacco an edge.
Yes, the total has moved here big time as well, and that was due in part to weather. We'll see where it settles later tonight. Ravens D brings a big challenge for Brady, number 2 on Football Outsiders. Adjusted charts. Dean Pease knows their ways. Prior to the 2004 season, he left Kent State for the Patriots. 2 years as a linebacker coach in New England under Belichick, another Sabian associate. He coached alongside Bill's father, Steve, at Navy in the late 1980s. After the 2005 season, he was promoted defensive coordinator, replacing Mangini. It's huge here, Teddy. Big spot.
Well, yeah. Pease really knows the Patriots defense as well as any opposing coach in the NFL. You're talking about a guy, again, he coached with Belichick's dad at Navy. He was in the Patriots coaching staff for the better part of, I think, 6 years. He was in New England, and he signed with Baltimore in 2010. After leaving New England, he didn't want to coach for Belichick anymore. So we know that this defense, more than most, has a chance to slow down that Patriots passing game.
Do they have enough weapons with the loss of Gronkowski? Amendola out. Bennett questionable. Hogan has stepped up. I like the dynamic duo when they put White and Lewis both in the backfield. They can spread out and throw there. Do you think they have enough weapons to make a postseason run?
Yes, I do think they have enough weapons to make a postseason run. Let's start with Malcolm Mitchell. There's no Gronk, there's no Amendola tonight. And The fact that Brady missed those early season games probably matters a little bit. He didn't get as much chance to work with Martellus Bennett or Mitchell when it came to August and September. But look at the chart here on Mitchell, the graphic for Mitchell. The first 8 games, he's got 7 catches. The last 3 games, 17 catches, 222 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Brady's quote speaks volumes. Your team changes a lot over the course of the season with injuries and adjustments and schemes. You have to adjust when Gronk goes down. You have to adjust when Deion Lewis comes back. You have to adjust when Danny goes out. So it's just constant adjustment and trying to build on certain things and adjust to certain things. I don't worry about New England's skill position talent. I worry about the fact they've lost that 2 tight end combination that was so devastating. But to say, no, this team's not capable, we know they're capable, Paulie. They've done it, 6 times already? Been to the Super Bowl with Brady and Belichick as a duo.
Well, certainly a big loss. I'm worried about the defense as well. See if they can get it done tonight. Game number 2, liveoddsportsbookreview.com, college hoops. Seton Hall, South Carolina, 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 on the East Coast. Fox Sports 1, Madison Square Garden in New York City. Seton Hall 2, 135.5 the total. South Carolina already becoming Kansas State under Frank Martin. Not going to get the big recruits, but he gets guys who play hard and defend, Teddy.
Oh, my gosh. This team is so scrappy. It's unbelievable. You look at them in the Ken Palm National Rankings. Defensive efficiency, number 5 in the country. Effective 2-point shooting percentage, number 4. Effective 3-point shooting percentage, number 5. And they haven't just done that against the weaklings they faced, and they haven't just done that at home. They've been able to do it on neutral floors, like 2 here in New York City. Remember the game against Syracuse? The game against Michigan? They have shut some good teams, some good offensive teams down. Excellent athleticism, good depth, great ball pressure. How about this? Only 57 assists allowed with 129 turnovers forced. And, of course, Sindari Thornwell, an 18.7 points per game average. They finally, Frank Martin at least, has a go-to scorer after the last couple years. They haven't had anyone who can put the biscuit in the basket.
No big deal for Seton Hall, just crossing the river into Madison Square Garden. Comfortable there. Played St. John's there. They played the Big East Tournament. Holdovers beat Creighton and Xavier in the Big East Tournament last March. They lost 69-67 to Nova in the finals. They played Villanova as well as anybody in the finals, in the tournament, other than Carolina in the championship game. And 4 of the Seton Hall starters played high school ball within a cab ride or subway ride of Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, sure. There'll certainly be a fair bit of familiarity with this floor. We can expect Seton Hall to have at least some modest crowds aboard here. And, of course, you talked about Kadeen Carrington, one of the guys who played high school ball within a subway ride of the Garden, along with Sanogo, Rodriguez, and Delgado. But Carrington right now averaging 20 points per game. He's out of the shadow of Isaiah Whitehead. Whitehead now playing with the Brooklyn Nets.
Up next, the deep dive. Army finally beats Navy in a terrible result for the Bucks and early line movement with the bowl games that get underway Saturday. We'll get to all that coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Do your research before you bet. Check out our ratings guide to see which books have the best ratings and sign-up bonuses. Open up several accounts. Shop for lines at SBRodds.com. Always be ahead of the game.
We are back. SportsBit Betting Insight today at Pauly Howard on Twitter at Teddy_covers. Time for the deep dive. One game to recap, and it was horrible for the books. Army, for the first time since 2001, beats Navy. Army opened 9, bet down to 5.5. The total opened 51, bet down to 46.5. Last week on SportsBit, we told you about Abby taking over, the third-string quarterback, the sophomore making his first start. Navy had 8 first downs in the game, and he kept throwing interceptions. Army built a comfortable lead, then they blew the lead. They had to come back, a wild one. Trump made an appearance, but Army finally gets the win, Teddy.
Yeah, and this was a really bad result for the house, because I'll tell you what, nobody bet Navy until the very end. And the people who were betting Navy right before kickoff were people that already had Army plus 9 in their pockets. Or I think there were some 9.5s or 10s out there earlier in the week, even before the 9. But, this game got bet as low as plus 4 before a little bit of buyback late. And as you mentioned, all Army, all under money, and all of that cashes with relative ease.
All right, the bowl starts Saturday. Can't wait. Remember, here on SportsBit, we'll break down every bowl game. You're not going to find that info, or no one's going to do that anywhere else. Early bowl line moves, Teddy. You expect these numbers to be good now since the early flurry of movement?
Yeah, I mean, what this is how bowl season works. You get an initial flurry, and then the lines sit. We can expect the lines that we're going to talk about right now to sit for a while. Don't expect much further movement at all until we get much closer to kickoff.
All right, some money on Southern Miss against Louisiana Lafayette this Saturday in the New Orleans Bowl. Louisiana Lafayette loves this game.
Yeah, La 4-0 straight up and against the spread in this bowl, this decade, under this coach. And yet the early money coming on Southern Miss. Southern Miss QB Mullins looked very healthy in the regular season finale. He spent most of the year out and banged up.
A lot of action on the under in this one. Las Vegas Bowl. Houston and San Diego State total bet down from 60 to 54.5.
Yeah, and the market's recognizing the Aztecs ain't no over team. You know, they played a couple of over type games against Wyoming, but this is a matchup of two pretty good defensive squads and nothing but under money. This, in fact, of all the games we're going to talk about, this is the single biggest line move so far. 5.5 point move on the Aztecs Cougars under.
Money coming in on other Cougars. Washington State against Minnesota.
Yeah, the first sevens are starting to show for Washington State. That's up from 5.5 against Minnesota at the Holiday Bowl. If you like Mike Leach's squad, bet them sooner rather than later. From all indications, this game will go to 7, potentially across the board. There's still plenty of 6.5s out there right now.
First bet's on Miami against West Virginia in the Russell Athletic Bowl.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like this line's going to go any higher. There was clear resistance at 3. They started getting West Virginia money taking the +3. So that first salvo came on Miami. It's going to sit at 3 for a while, and maybe we'll even see it get bet down back lower as we get towards kickoff. Clearly, there's some syndicates out there, some wise guys out there that like the Mountaineers side.
Some Virginia Tech money in a good game against Arkansas in the Belk Bowl, one of your favorite bowls.
Yeah, I honestly wonder if Belk even know. I mean, I don't even know what Belk does, but do they know that their sponsorship dollars are synonymous in the betting world with the most brutal beats of bowl season multiple years in a row? I don't know if they know that. Anyhow, Virginia Tech's taking the money so far, -6.5 up to -7 in the Belk Bowl.
Well, you got to explain that when you say that.
It was back-to-back years that Belk had the worst beat of all of bowl season. I mean, insane. And you remember the two I'm talking about?
It was Duke and somebody.
Yeah, it was Duke leading with a chance to win their first bowl game. They were +10.5, right, with less than 2 minutes to play, and they lost and failed to cover. You know how that played out. There was a pick 6. And then there was a fumble at the goal line, a quick play touchdown, and then a pick 6. Mm-hmm. And there was another one that followed me that was worse.
Yep, you nailed it. I think there was also a Bahamas Bowl with that Western Kentucky game that was horrible. Stanford up to 3.5 in the Sun Bowl against North Carolina.
Yeah, and we kind of teased this game when we talked about the bowls last week here on Sportsbit. We said this was arguably the biggest defensive mismatch in all of bowl season. And certainly, based on the early results, the markets agree with that assessment. Stanford taking the early money.
This will be a great game. Citrus Bowl, LSU against Louisville. LSU up to 3.5. It's one of the easiest angles. Bet against the Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah, and the thought process, of course, the Heisman Trophy winner gets fat and happy on the banquet circuit. Meanwhile, the opposing defense is really looking to make a statement teeing off against that player. The money came on LSU not because Lamar Jackson won the Heisman. But that being said, Derrick Henry and Bama, they didn't cover last year. But then again, they were chalk. Nothing but LSU money so far. This has been a fairly significant move. 2.5 up to 3.5, blowing right through the 3 for the Tigers.
Some Kentucky money in the Tax Slayer Bowl, and one spot has Alabama laying 17 in the first semifinal against Washington.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Johnson's offense consistently underachieves in bowls when opposing defenses have extra time to prepare for it. And, of course, an SEC defense isn't easy for that offense. Kentucky +4.5 and down to +3.5 now. And the Alabama, I mean, it's still hanging below 17 across most of the market, but it's still up from the -14.5 that we saw at the opener in the Peach Bowl. And again, you want to see the sharp square divides, just look at the different books. Bovada, they're hanging at 17. CG Technology here in Vegas, they're hanging at 15. That's books that cater to very different types of bettors.
And last but not least, arguably the heaviest amount of money has come on Auburn against Oklahoma.
It's been a flood of Auburn money. The markets don't like Oklahoma early on, at least. The vastly superior defense catching points. The markets tend to be attracted by good defensive teams when it comes to betting these bowls.
Yes, and one more bet for the books. Lamar Jackson wins the Heisman. He opened 75-1 at William Hill and 100-1 at the Westgate in Las Vegas. One bookmaker said it was like losing a big NFL game. The tough loss for the books is Lamar Jackson. Wow, that's a monster ticket if you had that one. Winner with the Packers, a winning week last week. 36-20-1 in football, a 32-20 run with the play of the day. Money time, Teddy. Back to college hoops. What are we doing?
Yeah, we're not going to the NFL tonight. Only one game on the card. Let's go to college and take a look at game number 519, 520, South Carolina in Seton Hall. Under the total, 135.5. This is not going to be a pretty game to watch. You know how South Carolina is going to play. The kids on Seton Hall, they're not going to back down from a physical games. Let's expect the result, however, to be pretty for the pocket. South Carolina, Seton Hall, under $135.5. That is our play of the day.
Very excited for the week coming up. Tomorrow's show, Jimmy Vaccaro in the deep dive. Also, win total updates in the NFL. 19 of the 32 teams, a done deal. Teddy will break that down. And Wednesday, I know you're going to love this. You're going to learn a lot, Teddy. The listeners are, Teddy. But part 2, bowl handicapping, how to make money. Now, you got to check this out Wednesday in the deep dive.
Yeah, really. I mean, whatever. They'll be back. They love the show. Come on. Sportsbet, betting inside today. We'll see you guys tomorrow.